being a 20-year-old woman in the early 2000s, in the spotlight, I think in general, it was a really harsh time. I think women were just pulled apart for how they looked in a way that was, it was socially acceptable at the time, and it was just, it was tough. I think it was tough. There was a lot placed on how women looked and what was offered at that time for women my age, as far as like acting roles or opportunities. It was much slimmer than it is now.
What if your entire career was decided by how people saw your body? For Scarlett Johansson, that wasn't a question. It was her reality. Here's something that might surprise you. In the early 2000s, female actresses in Hollywood were far more likely to be cast based on appearance than talent, with limited roles that often reduced them to stereotypes. Back then, terms like the bombshell, the other woman, or the side piece weren't just labels. They were career paths. And for many young actresses, escaping those labels was nearly impossible. Scarlett Johansson, now one of the most respected actresses in the world, is finally opening up about what it was really like behind the scenes. During a recent interview, she reflected on her early years in Hollywood, and what she revealed paints a picture of an industry that looked very different from today. She described it as a really harsh time. Imagine being in your early 20s, still figuring out who you are, still growing, still discovering your voice. Now imagine doing all of that under a global spotlight. That was Scarlett Johansson in the early 2000s. She had already built an impressive resume with films like Lost in Translation, Girl with a Pearl Earring, Ghost World, and In Good Company. Critically acclaimed, respected performances. But behind the recognition, there was a different reality. According to Johansson, the focus wasn't always on her talent. It was on her appearance. Constantly, publicly, relentlessly. She explained that at the time, it was socially acceptable to tear women apart based on how they looked. Think about that. Not just criticism, but normalization. For a young actress trying to build a serious career, that environment was more than challenging. It was limiting. And then came the labels. The roles she was offered began to follow a pattern. Not complex characters, not diverse personalities, but archetypes, the bombshell, the other woman, the side piece. These weren't just occasional roles. They became expectations. Johansson revealed that she found herself being pushed into this narrow lane, one that didn't reflect everything she wanted to explore as an artist. And the more she accepted those roles, the harder it became to break out of them. At one point, she even questioned if that was all her career would ever be. She recalled feeling like, this is it, I guess. That moment hits hard, because it shows how powerful industry perception can be. When enough people tell you who you are, it starts to shape what you believe is possible. But Scarlett Johansson didn't stay there. Instead of accepting those limitations, she made a decision. She stepped away, strategically, not completely, but intentionally. She turned to theater in New York. Why? Because it allowed her to do something Hollywood wasn't offering at the time, explore different sides of herself. On stage, she wasn't boxed in. She wasn't reduced to an image. She could stretch creatively, take risks, and rebuild her identity as an actress. Another key decision, she stopped chasing every role. In an industry where staying visible is everything, she chose patience. She waited for the right opportunities, roles that aligned with who she wanted to become, not just what the industry expected of her. That choice is risky, because saying no can mean disappearing. But for Johansson, it meant redefining her career. Looking back, she says things are different now. There are more opportunities for women, more complex roles, more empowering stories, more space to exist beyond appearance. But that doesn't erase what came before. Her experience is part of a larger story about how Hollywood and society treated women not too long ago, and in some ways, still does. The early 2000s were a time when media culture thrived on scrutiny. Magazine, blog, interviews, all feeding into a system that constantly judged women. Who wore what? Who gained weight? Who looked perfect? And actresses like Scarlett Johansson were right at the center of it. What makes her story powerful isn't just what she went through. It's how she navigated it. She didn't let those labels define her forever. She challenged them quietly, strategically over time. And today, she stands as one of the most versatile and respected actresses in the industry. Not because she fit into a mold, but because she broke out of it. This conversation matters now more than ever. Because while progress has been made, the pressure on women, especially in entertainment, hasn't completely disappeared. But stories like this shift the narrative. They expose the system. They create awareness. And they open the door for change. Scarlett Johansson's journey isn't just about Hollywood. It's about identity, perception, and the fight to be seen for who you truly are. From being labeled and limited to redefining her path on her own terms, her story is a reminder of how far the industry has come and how far it still has to go. Because sometimes the biggest transformation isn't on screen, it's behind it.